I always look good.
Yeah, yeah, you look good on this. Yeah. Oh boy, I gotta put this on head. Oh boy, I gotta put this on. Just give me a moment. You can take pictures if you like. They're talking so that you can give it to him. I wonder if I'm. No. I wonder if I. Okay. Tell me, is it okay?
Yeah, it's alright.
Is it okay?
It's okay.
Okay, great. Oh, good. No, it's recording.
It's no problem. Yeah.
No, I'll edit it for the first time. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it recording already?
Yeah, it's recording. Don't worry.
You know how to edit. So,
So, how should I address the E, right?
译者.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I call you E?
Yeah. Actually, 译者.
译者.
That's my official name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure that. Okay. You ready? Just look at a few seconds. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. Save Hyatt for the Hyatt hotels around the world. And here I have Ethan on my show, who's a specialist in music actually. He does music and jazz and so forth. And here at Starbucks, it's kind of a nice place to be. And I want you guys to come visit the Starbucks here in Singapore at the Delphi Shopping Mall for a great cup of coffee. And thanks to Starbucks for the accommodation. And thanks to Ethan for being here in our show. And please, and here he's got something to tell us about the trends and the philosophy of music and jazz here in Singapore, as well as Asia. So, Ethan, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And please tell us, what's happening with the culture of music, and as well as the trends.
Okay. So just to briefly summarize it, actually, to start with it, we need to recognize that music is very often a reflection of what is the societal views on many things. Like during the days of Marvin Gaye, you had people. Marvin Gaye wrote what's going on, reflections about people's own opinions of what's happening with the Vietnam War and things like that. So actually, as the eras went by, all the music was actually reflecting a lot of what society was trying to say. However, in the last 10 years or so, the industry has changed drastically. It seems that it has been more about the values that people want, that the big companies seem to want people to believe in. There's all kinds of things, all the topics that they keep on talking about. I mean, music has gone from talking about a lot of meaningful things, whether is it the 70s or 80s or even the 90s, there were plenty of music within the pop culture that actually represented a lot of the voices of the people as well. Compared to nowadays, where you're actually talking about how people are hitting on the dance floor, very whimsical things, where it doesn't seem to really talk enough about what it's like to be a person, a human being, a normal person, just living day to day. So what happened is that it's also partly because our society has been moving more and more towards that. We are going more and more towards materialistic things. We are talking about sex, we're talking about money, we're always concerned about money. In fact, one of the reasons why Nicki Minaj is so popular right now is because all her raps have to talk about money or bitching about somebody else, or because she literally called another woman a stupid hoe in the lyrics, and everybody seems to dig that kind of music nowadays because it's catchy and it doesn't really take a lot of effort to try to translate what it is, and it appeals to people because it is a lot of the emotions that we've been feeling nowadays, a lot of anger, a lot of materialism, a lot of directions in which we're heading towards, that is not really holistic as a person. Whereas, when you had the music in the 70s, 80s and 90s, you had a variety of such stuff. You still had your Madonna, you still had the sugary pop stuff, but you also had a full palette worth of different kinds of music that you were exposed to. This actually changed because in the 90s, one of the big companies, and this is covered by one of the famous documentaries called Before the Music Dies, that one of the major companies right now, which is controlling a lot of the radio stations all around the world, especially in America, is this company called Clear Channel. It actually started as a car company that when another company borrowed money from them, and couldn't pay up, they took over this radio station and they started selling bits of time to different advertisers and different people, such that they could earn money out of playing the music, out of advertising times. And now this is a very common practice nowadays in almost all radio channels. However, what happened was that because of the fact that a lot of radio channels then were still run by independent owners. A lot of them loved the particular music that they were listening to, and therefore they wanted to share with the crowd. So you had a lot of diversity and a lot of difference of opinions. But what happened was that when Clear Channel took over, it became almost a mechanical reproduction of itself over and over again. You actually were trying to get music that people would listen to that was popular at the time. And just keep on repeating those tracks over and over again throughout the day, rather than having different people come on and show different genres of music and everything like that. In fact, a lot of these companies which now do those kind of radio programmings where you have large variety of music are not doing so well in comparison to these kind of big companies which are selling the slots like that. And what happened was that as this grew, they took over more and more radio stations. They took over like 10,000 radio stations in America alone. And what happened is that they found out that the music was, having diversity of music was not the key for your success. Instead, having music which is not dislikable. Meaning, no matter what, if a music actually often means something, it's like a person with an honest opinion. Usually, there will be people who disagree with it and there will be people who agree with it. But then when somebody comes up with a very politically correct statement, everybody can go, yeah, okay, but then they don't really agree or disagree with it, but they are okay with listening to it. There's no real unhappiness with it. So they realized that music which was politically correct, in some sense, were actually very popular to listen to because people could just leave it on all day. And at the same time, it's because of the advent of technology. There's a lot of nuances lost in the music because we went towards the digital age and we were going for cleaner and cleaner sounds where we removed all the dirt of like the plucking of the strings, the slide of the guitar and things like that. All these little nuances were actually removed more and more from the music. But however, these were actually very human elements, and that actually gave you a very diverse type of sound when it came to pop music. However, when you started removing all of these elements, and then there are other effects such as auto-tuning, which is very, very popular nowadays, with T-Pain, with his very famous videos of him doing all kinds of funny runs with all the auto-tune all over the place. And then you also have nowadays like almost all singers need at least some auto-tune. If not, to most people it's unhearable. So with all these things, what happens is that it became more and more digital, more and more factory made, and they found that the more similar it is with the other songs, the more people are just going to just zone off and listen to it. But listen to it unconsciously. But the problem is that with this lack of diversity, it's actually a very dehumanizing process because we as humans are complex beings, we are social creatures. We need to have multiple friends, multiple types of friends in order for us to have a full life because we need to see different perspectives in order to have an open mind. However, can you imagine if all your friends were the same and they just keep on repeating the same few politically correct statements? And this is what has been happening with the 21st century music, especially in the pop radio stations. It is very dehumanizing because it is repetitive. It goes only in one direction most of the time. I mean, you do have some breakthroughs from time to time, but very often they are very monotonous, they're very catchy, but very often they can be put in the background because they're not making any statements. They are very often very whimsical, like I said, very materialistic, or very politically correct. So that has been the trend towards in the 21st century music.
Wow, amazing. Now, for about the 21st century music itself today, what kind of future are we heading towards? And what kind of advice would you see that policymakers and even the petitioners and music enthusiasts can do to change?
Okay, one of the biggest things I really feel very strongly about is actually about diversifying radio stations. That is the key thing. If people vote in more to radio stations, they request different types of music. It is going to be a huge boon because if they request for, okay, I have never heard this band do other songs. can you put out other songs by this same band, or can you I've never heard this band before, could you I like this band, but I never heard it on a radio station before. Can you play more of their tracks? That's what a lot of local artists have been doing to get their fans to get themselves on the radio stations, and it has been working for some of them. However, one of the biggest things is that we all have to be advocates of our favorite bands and our favorite music, such that we can get the radio station to play it. In terms of policymakers, one of the important things is that in terms of policy, there is not a lot of things that we can do about it, because what happened was that this actually started in America. I can't remember whether it was Clinton, I'm not sure, but it was covered before the music dies. I would highly recommend everybody to watch that video, because it's a really, really meaningful documentary. But it's because of the fact that previously you couldn't own more than 3 or 4 radio stations per owner. But what happened was that there was a legislation being passed through that there was no limitations on how many radio stations you can own. And from then on, Clear Channel overtook all the stations and started having this one bureaucratic kind of system where they would play the exact same song and the exact same playlist throughout the whole day, so that they could increase the amount of profits they could get from the particular companies. And this is a trend that has been going on for the last 10 years, and it's been expanding more and more because it gets more and more money and more leverage. So for policymakers, if they do want to increase diversity and change people's mindsets, one of the important things is actually to increase the possibility of diversity by providing avenues for new radio companies to come up, and to maybe weaken some of the larger companies, such that you create more diversity, or get them to kind of force them even to change the direction of the music that they're going towards, because you need the diversity. Because at the end of the day, the arts and the music is all about diversity. It's about having multiple opinions. Like one of one of my friends who is very wise once told me that while Sparta was a very strong army, they still died in the end. Meanwhile, in Athens, everybody had an opinion. It was a chaotic mess. Everybody had their say. But at the end of the day, it was Athens which survived, not Sparta. At the end of the day, we need diversity, because discipline and one direction will only get us towards one direction. But the truth is that in order for us to always adapt to our ever-changing environments, we need diversity. We need diversity of opinions, we need diversity of arts, we need diversity of people. But nowadays, it's very hard to be out of the norm, because you have set patterns in music. You have set movies that everybody watches. You have set all this and that. There's no such thing as people having. I'm not checking out any of the same things as you do. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about our interests, and we'll share about it. You don't see that often anymore. You do see that on the internet very often, and there's always a very niche crowd that goes into like hardcore genres of film, music, art. But the mainstream still stays the same. They are still listening to the same thing, watching the same thing, and doing the same thing. And it is very difficult to have diversity at this kind of time, because and again, the lack of diversity will actually eventually cause a lot of problems in the long run, though it is generating a lot of profits and giving a lot of opportunities for people right now.
Amazing. Speaking about diversity changes and the policymakers having to look into making a change for the people, and also encouraging people to actually encourage radio stations to have more diverse programs.
Yes.
What about the future? What kind of advice would you give for future generations, future musicians? And also, on a personal note, what is music to you?
Okay. Before I go into that, I shall talk about what music is to me. Music, it is a form of art. To me, there is 2 extremes of music. There's the commercial side and there's the artistic side. But whenever I say music, it is essentially an organized sound which is meant to express something, which is an artistic role. Meaning, music is often used as a tool for somebody to express an idea or a feeling and spread it to somebody else. If you want to go back to the roots of music, music was actually, if you look at the African tribes, if you look at ethnic music, a lot of them were used for religious purposes, a lot of them were used for cathartic purposes. A lot of them were used as means of connecting people in a group. Get people into trance-like state to to be able to connect with one another, or connect with the spirits, or connect with something else. They all had their uses. Music was a very, very important tool in expression, connection, and the humanity of things. And therefore, it has always been an art because it will always evolve as humans grew, as a different society, as a different kind of civilization. Music is an expression of exactly what a person or a society is actually doing. In fact, okay, so what happened was that I was trying to figure out a couple of years back what made the difference between a musical music and something that just didn't hit me. So when I went down into it and tried to analyze everything, I realized that one of the most important things that everybody neglects is this thing called the pulse. I call it the pulse. Many musicians have called it the pulse. They sometimes call it the silence, the beat, the big beat that is behind all the music. Most people miss it out because they're always thinking of the notes, they're always thinking of the metronome, they're thinking of this and that and this and that, but they don't feel anything inside. Because in psychology, if you understand there's the id and the ego, by Sigmund Freud, he talked about it being our unconscious mind and ego being our conscious mind. However, I would like to propose that there is actually, this is actually very important in music, because in order for us to be able to create art, we need to feel. But very often, what happens with musicians nowadays and music producers and everybody, they're very technical. Because we have done so much research into what works, we've seen it a billion times over, we've had 100 years of history into what is good popular music, what is going to be great at selling. We always have the same true formulas. But that's a very cerebral thing to do, it's a very intellectual thing to do. But music's all about feelings. You need the feelings first before you get to the intellectual side. So one of the major things is that I realized that very often the musicians themselves are not connected in emotions even when they're playing. They're thinking about, I'm going to play this lick, I'm going to play this line, let me repeat this over and over again because this is exactly what people want. But the truth is that very few people are actually feeling their emotions even when they're playing music, and that's what I realized. And therefore, I really want, for myself, the scene to change more towards feeling music where you feel. And I call it organic music which is actually from the heart, music which has a pulse behind it, because it's the most important thing behind music is not the notes, it's not the harmony, it's the rhythm, it's the pulse behind everything. And much like what is unseen gives you what is seen, what is unheard gives you what is heard. So the pulse is actually something which is innate within the person, will never be expressed out overtly. But whatever music comes from the person will indicate to you that he's feeling the pulse, and you can feel the music along with him. So therefore, music is actually a very, very powerful and important tool, and music will forever be an important tool. In fact, even though mainstream music is so dehumanizing right now and so one-directional right now, you have the same regular few all these few tracks just repeating themselves over and over again. The truth is that, meanwhile, there are a lot of other small little movements going on. Like within metal itself, they are actually breaking out of it, trying to fuse with other modern styles of music, such as jazz or R&B. They're trying to mix it all up. You have jazz movements which are doing fusion and trying to break out of it. And there are also the free jazz community, which is actually growing in New York and the States, that is actually countering exactly the effects of all the mainstream music. And they are trying to be even more human than any other music. And so there is actually a counteracting force. And for the future generations, the only thing I will always advise people to do is to open their ears and keep on listening to different types of music and see what genre of music and what sounds really touch them. I have a theory. Every genre of music. Okay, this is a rather this part is rather well known. Is that every genre of music has its own roots and has its own meaning behind it. Such as rock music, it's a lot about teenage angst during when it first started. It was a lot about the anger, because it came from the blues. Blues came from expression of the suffering that people were having. The rock element of blues came out of the angst of it. Meanwhile, jazz came from the freedom, the wish for freedom. And then for R&B, it was the feel good at the end of the day kind of groove. So each of them have their own ideals and own goals at the end of the day, and each of them channel a different kind of energy, each genre of music. And the thing is that, and then there's all the subgenres along with that, which gives you multiple kinds of feelings. So my best advice for the future generations is find the music which suits you the best, and really go deep into it and really understand it, so you can understand yourself and you can really push for the music you love.
Well, thank you, Izzy, for sharing with us. And here we have Mr. Yizu, who is a music enthusiast, musician, composer, as well as an educator as well. And here at the National Critics' Choice Save Hyatt, the future of music lies in the hands of the future generations, and they're going to change the world in the 21st century. And for those who want to change the world in the 21st century, please do make it change. I'm Robin Stienberg at Save Hyatt. Thank you for watching.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely.
Wow, how long was that?